South Africa would be to continue in this, where are we going? Where do the blacks fit? But I think the ANC's plateau has been reached. I see the ANC slowly breaking up. I see the ANC going, one side will become more leftist. They'll go back to their old freedom charter. Those who have made money, like Cyril Ramaphosa, will have to find new ways of identifying with a middle class liberal party where you will have English whites. Competition for political power will now rage between these two political classes, and the old ANC might likely win, because the numbers in South Africa that are poor and dispossessed are larger than those who are not. So you have absolutely a new apartheid system, but this time blacks are part of it. So the real blacks are going to say to you that you're not part of us. That I see has potentially looming danger, unless Zuma is able to make a compromise. Just like Mandela bent over backwards, in my view, too much to accommodate whites. This is the time for the leadership of the ANC to bend over backwards to accommodate black people. Do you know, when I saw all those rolling hills in Kunu on all the programs, yours, CNN, I was struck by the fact that Mandela could not even rebuild his own old schools. It takes Oprah Winfrey to come from America to build schools. These very schools he attended, they're all broken down. I was sad about that. As president, he couldn't fix it. We criticize Obasanjo for not fixing his own road. At least fix the road to your town. You are from Omwa here. If you go back, they'll say, what did you do for us? You know, charity begins at home. So that was the point. The way to make South Africa to slow down is after the unquestioned love for Mandela. Unquestioned. That there's no doubt about it. People are going to begin to say, well, now that he's gone. So that is Zuma's challenge. He's got to really feed the needs of hungry black South Africans.
But do we really need another Mandela?
No. We need a doer. We need a guy who fixes roads, who gets jobs. Mandela is one of a kind, one in an age, to describe him as Obama described. It doesn't come often. We need a pragmatic leader who understands economics, who understands how to mold a society to give it what it wants. That's what we did.
But it's true, countries like Nigeria helped support them during the apartheid regime and helped in a way to get them to where they are. But right now they would be needing that assistance from us for the future.
We gave them so much assistance that I was even shocked they did not recognize it. Because Nigeria was actually a frontline state. I hope you know that Mbeki was here for about 10 years as the ANC rep. And we gave them a lot of money, a lot of support. In my time at Nsukka, where loads of South African students, all you needed to do at that time was to say, I have a South African passport and I need a school. We accommodated them. And they were very, very, very grateful at the time. But I didn't see much of President Jonathan. Whether that was Western coverage or Channel's coverage, I don't know. But certainly, he didn't even speak. Because South Africa, is a white country. Bottom line is, it's a white country. And that showed in the way in which the South African government bent over backwards to give respect to the Western world. The same Western world that fought them. The same Western world that imposed all sorts of tough conditions. But the Nigerians and other African countries that were assisting, I think, yes, Zambia. I saw the former Zambian president, Kenneth Kaunda, because Kenneth Kaunda's country was blasted by South Africa. I hope you know that South Africa had 6 nuclear weapons, and they were prepared to absolutely use them, but for the West warning them. And in doing so, they took Namibia. Namibia is just below South Africa. And they had a place called the Caprivi Strip. And there was their nuclear arsenal mounted with the possibility of hitting Lagos.
Mr. Agbakoba, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, about a week ago, Russian President Vladimir Putin pardoned former oil tycoon Mikhail Khodorkovsky, and then later the two jailed members of the band Pussy Riot. They were released under the country's new amnesty deal. Well, you think they'd be grateful, but they're happy about the release, but are more determined to stay their course. So, could it have been a political stunt as proposed by the newly released, or was it really an act of goodwill?
It was just a little more than a week ago when Russia's former oil tycoon Mikhail Khodorkovsky was granted bail from jail, having spent 10 years. The government said the pardon came on compassionate grounds to allow him visit his ailing mother. Shortly after his release, Khodorkovsky became a voice for those still imprisoned by the government. He urged world leaders to push for the release of all political prisoners in Russian jails during a meeting he had with President Vladimir Putin in Berlin. He said there had been no conditions for his release, but that he had made no admission of guilt in asking President Putin for a pardon. He hoped Mr. Putin would not stay in power for life. But the message was more emphatic for the two freed members of the pop band Pussy Riot, who said they still want to see the end of Mr. Putin's regime. Tolokonikova and Maria Alyokina, with another band member, Ekaterina Samutsevich, had performed in Moscow's Christ the Savior Cathedral in March last year, where they called on the Virgin Mary to drive Mr. Putin out of Russia. All three were charged with hooliganism and were later convicted. Tolokonikova and Maria Alyokina were sentenced to 2 years in prison, while Samutsevich got a suspended sentence and was released. The band members say the release was politically motivated, aimed solely at improving Russia's image before it hosts the Winter Olympics, and was not a humanitarian gesture. Meanwhile, 6 Greenpeace activists left Russia on Friday morning in anticipation that they would be joined by more. Russia formally dropped criminal charges against the men who were arrested during a protest over Arctic oil drilling. 29 of the 30 of them were freed and allowed to leave the country, but for the amnesty, they could have faced up to 7 years in jail.
We don't admit any guilt.
While the release of prisoners may be considered strategic, Russians themselves are of mixed opinion. Some activists say they prefer to view the action as an act of mercy and nothing else, while others say it's a strategy to help improve the country's image for the Olympics. The government, however, has been quiet about reasons behind the amnesty. President Putin himself is not one to respond to his critics, so for now, silence and observation will have to do.
And this is where we end the program this week. Thanks for staying with us all year. God bless you, and may you have a prosperous 2014. I am Amarachi Ubani.
Coming up next, Sports Tonight. Every day as they happen, opinions arise.
I lost money in Africa. Sanusi said he couldn't care about the shareholder. Is that possible?
For and against, they have to be heard.
The government of this dispensation has made a very strong commitment. Yet, bomb skips going on every day. People are dying. and we are talking grammar.
Unfeatured,
You are the worst advertisement of the product we are trying to preach.
uninhibited,
People are contravening and contradicting traffic rules.
and issues are laid bare.